around the nation. My name is Kelvin Okamoto. I'm a resident of Marlboro, been here for 10 years. And I'm also on the Mayor's Advisory Commission on Human Relations. As we talk about Asian Americans, we're also including the Pacific Islanders, or as many people know, AAPI. My fellow members on the commission, and if you stand when I call your name, are Anushri Bag, Chief Jim Bartlett, Raju Sinzala, Dr. Coleman, Shelley Cooper, Barb Lamb, Ashar Mundy, Natalia Rector, Dee Thornton, and Michael Waller. And just like to thank all of them for also being part of that commission with the mayor. I also want to take this opportunity to mention that Carmelo Sparrow, the education reform chair for communities, tonight's event. And thank you, Carmelo, for the great suggestion. I'd also like to recognize city elected officials who are with us this evening. They are Mayor Jim Grayson, City Council President Sue Finkel, City Council Vice President Kevin Ryder, and they can stand as they call their name if they want. City Councilors Adam Ossett, Laura Campbell, Tony Green, Dr. Tim Hannon, Miles Nelson, Jeff Worrell, and City Clerk Sue Walgate. You will be hearing from several speakers representing the Asian American community. Information about this organization can be found in the event program. It's on the back page. At this time, I would like to introduce Pastor Preston Young of the Chinese Community Church, who will offer the opening prayer.
Let's quiet our hearts together, and if you're able, so I can invite you to prayer. Father, the words of the psalmist capture the anguish that many of us are feeling. How long, O Lord, how long? How long until racism is replaced by reconciliation? How long until prejudice is replaced by peace? How long until hatred toward one another is replaced by honoring one another? How long until vilifying the other is replaced by valuing the other? How long until injustice is replaced by justice and unrighteousness is replaced by righteousness? Lord, we long for the day when justice will roll on like a river, righteousness like a never-failing stream. Lord, the heavens proclaim your righteousness, for you are a God of justice. You care for the marginalized, the voiceless, the oppressed, and the hurting. So, as we gather tonight, leaders and members of our community, to reflect and lament that our world is not as it should be, would you also strengthen our resolve to be agents of change, to be a blessing to others by guarding us both from unrighteous anger, which is counterproductive, as well as from unfounded lethargy, which is unproductive. Indeed, spur us on to love and good deeds, reminding us, because of the reconciling work of your Son, that one day there will be a great multitude that no one can count, from every nation, tribe, people, language, standing before your throne. So that one day you will wipe every tear. There will be no more death or mourning, or crying or pain. For the old order of things has passed away. So even as you will make all things new, help us to join your work of renewal tonight as we reflect and lament, but also strengthen our resolve to work together for the flourishing of this community, the city, the state, this nation, and our world. I pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you, Pastor Young. I will now ask that we all pause for a moment of silence to remember and acknowledge Asian Americans and all people of color who have been victims of racial hate and violence. Moment of silence. Thank you. Our first speaker this evening is Mayor Jim Brainerd, who is in his 7th term as the mayor of Carmel. He is a graduate of Butler University, Ohio Northern University, and Oxford Institute on International and Comparative Law. Since taking office in 1996, the city has grown from a population of 25,000 to over 102,000 and has experienced transformational growth in infrastructure, development, parks, and cultural amenities, making Carmel one of the best places to live, work, and raise a family. While transforming the city, the mayor understands the importance of and has therefore created beautiful public spaces for all members of our community, regardless of their socioeconomic status or heritage to gather. Mayor Brainerd, please come on to the podium.
Good evening. Thank you all for being here. During the past several years, our country has seen an escalation of hateful speech, emotions, discrimination directed at members of the Asian American, Pacific Islander community. Most recently, following acts of violence with shootings in Atlanta and brutal attacks on the streets of some of our country's busy cities have left Americans, particularly our Asian communities, stunned and afraid. Carmel continues to grow in all areas, including racial and ethnic diversity. Carmel's residents of Asian descent make up our second highest demographic. They have chosen Carmel as home, as everyone here has, and everybody deserves to live in a place where they feel secure and safe and welcome. As a city, we take pride in being one of the best places in the country to live, to work, to raise a family. And so it's particularly important to recognize what is occurring around the country and actively take steps here to avoid the same fate we've seen, the same thing happen in other places. We must respect and protect all members, all visitors, everyone in our community. And this just isn't one person's job or one of the Human Rights Advisory Commission's job. It's everyone's job to do this. Everybody living here must unequivocally reject hateful and discriminatory speech or acts of violence directed at members of our Asian American community, or anyone else for that matter. And as we begin to emerge from the global pandemic that has kept us apart, we need to continue to remember that we're truly in this together, and hate does not have a place here in Carmel. In fact, you mentioned our public spaces that we're building. These traditionally in cities throughout history have been places where people with different backgrounds, different economic backgrounds, people with different jobs, people from different places could come together in the public square and get to know each other. That's why some of these public spaces and public facilities are so important. Too many times we drive into our garage, never get out of our car, go straight in our house, and barely know the neighbors on the other side. In some ways, I think there's a great yearning for going back to the way cities were built years ago, where people were out in the center of the community, walking, mixing with each other, meeting people, unlike themselves, and finding out that everyone really is pretty much the same and has the same goals for their families and their lives. So as we work together to end hatred in our community, we need to be mindful of the ways in which we try to accomplish that goal. If one's tactics threaten another group trying to achieve that goal, it will undermine the effort. America, in many ways, is a grand experiment in a Republican form of government, representative government, an experiment, too, in that we decided this experiment. People from everywhere come together and form a new country. And this sometimes a challenging thing to put people from all these different backgrounds together and have it work. But those were the principles that our country was founded on. We haven't been perfect as a country, but we've always had these lofty principles that we welcome everyone, and that everybody has an equal opportunity to succeed, be safe, secure, advance, and live a wonderful life here in this country. To do that, we have to make sure that everyone's liberties are protected. We have to make certain that everyone respects each other. We have to work at creating and saying we're going to have a peaceful, secure community. We can do this. We've done it for many years in Carmel, but we have to be active about it. We have to think about it, and it's all of our responsibility to do it. I want to take another opportunity to thank the Human Rights Advisory Commission, and particularly Kevin for staying tonight. We appreciate it very much.
So thank you to the mayor once again for his comments. Our next speaker is Carmel Police Chief Jim Barlow. Chief Barlow is a graduate of Indiana University, the FBI National Academy, and has been a member of the Carmel Police Department for 39 years. He manages the operations and activities of the Carmel Police Department to ensure the highest level of law enforcement services to the community. Chief Barlow, please come to the podium.
Good evening, everyone. I first want to thank the Mayor's Commission on Human Relations and the CARE Group for organizing this gathering. I really think it's important for all communities to openly show their support for each other. I think this is a great start. I'm honored to be here tonight to represent the Carmel Police Department and showing our support to the Asian community. Years ago, Mayor Brainerd, Carmel City Council, and quite frankly, the community set standards for their police department, Carmel Police Department. The expectation is that the Carmel Police Department provide a safe and inviting environment and community for all people, whether they work here, live here, or just visiting. And I just wanted to be here tonight just to reinforce the fact that the men and women of the Carmel Police Department are working hard every day to meet those expectations. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Barlow. Representing the Asian American Alliance is its president, RuPaul Dunlop. She is a business strategy and IT executive with over 25 years of consulting experience. RuPaul is deeply involved in causes addressing diversity, inclusion, equity, healthcare, tech, education, and poverty. She's been a board member of the Asian American Alliance for over 15 years and served as its president for 2 terms. She's a graduate of Mumbai University and the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern. Please welcome RuPaul Dunlop to the podium.
Thank you very much, Mayor of Carmel and the community here. I want to first of all start my remarks with just one silent moment of Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That means be peace with everyone. My fellow Americans and friends of the city of Carmel, thanks for showing your love and kindness to us and allowing me to share my thoughts and prayers with you. It has been a very challenging year for many of us, facing the one new demon that we had never experienced before, called COVID. However, that particular challenge has also created some of the issues that our community has faced, and that's what hate crime, racism, and discrimination. Hate crime is not new for Asian Americans. silent about it. During this particular time, I don't know a single person who can raise their hand in this audience or even outside an audience can tell me that, hey, one Asian refused as a teacher, policeman, fireman, doctor, pharmacist, any service provider saying no to any of their fellow American to provide the service. However, during that time, we were facing many challenges that we just get quiet. Over just last more than a year, I would say, because now it's more than a year, it's almost 15 months that we have been facing this pandemic. Just within metro cities of America, hate crimes against Asian American have increased by 150%. There are 3,800 cases registered across the country. And many have been happening across Indiana also. However, we could not keep quiet when they started, the haters, not those Americans who are our friends and their wishes. The haters started attacking our seniors in the middle of the streets, and just verbal abuse turned into some of the violent acts happening all over the state. It was even more hurtful for many of us because these kind of actions were happening in the places where we go for work. 6 innocent women were killed in Atlanta, and it was absolutely heart-shattering for me, particularly that it happened right here in Indianapolis. We are better than this. And I'm also grateful in such a harsh time. I really applaud all of you for standing with us, showing your support and love and kindness. I want to take this moment to think about how do we move forward. I have just a few things that I can share from my heart. First of all, be an ally. Don't be a bystander. If you see something, please speak up. Right here in City of Carmel and across our state, our law enforcement officers are there to support us. So please report it if you see it. Second one is, take time to learn about other cultures. Many of us have come here for a variety of reasons. To work, to raise our family. Many have come here as a refugee or adoptee. Or some of us just wanted to just be in a better place. Many reasons have brought us all together. But ultimately, we are all Americans. We are proud of our heritage. So take an opportunity to learn about us. You will really enjoy our culture, and I can always invite all of you for July 31st Asian Fest that Asian American Alliance will be doing. Many of you always come. So ask your neighbor, ask your teacher, ask your friend, anything that you want to learn about our culture. But please do not assume anything that can create a hate or discrimination amongst us, because that's something we really want to avoid. If you are around in this community, you cannot drive past one mall without having an Asian business. Support them. They are working a lot. One of the backlash in last 1 year we have seen is many Asian businesses are not supported. Please support them. They need your help. If you're a corporate leader, think about your policies and procedures inside your HR organization. Maybe it's time to look at, training for unconscious bias, cultural competency, and even bringing together your employees to build their employee resource groups. Last but not the least, I would just say that support and pray for us. What we have seen happening here is not an end to it. We have seen a second wave of surge of COVID in many countries, including my own homeland in India. We have our Burmese friends in this community, which is one of the largest community in Indiana, whose homeland is facing a political backlash, and they are also voting because of their families are not safe there. And we are still not out of this pandemic. So please show your support to each other. And that's all I can say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, RuPaul. Representing the Japan American Society of Indiana is Teresa Kolbeck. She is one of its founding members and has served as the organization's executive director since 1990. Teresa has worked with Japanese for 40 years and maintains a wide network of contacts in Indiana, the United States, and Japan. She received the Sagamore the Wabash Award from Indiana Governor Mitch Daniels in 2012. Teresa is a graduate of Purdue University. Please welcome Teresa to the podium.
Kevin, thank you. Mayor Brainerd and the team, thank you. The Japanese community really appreciates this evening. RuPaul, I want to thank you for all that you do to lead the Asian American community. It's great to be here with you. We stand together with the Asian American community in mourning the recent lives lost due to acts of violence. Many things have happened over 30 years, but we didn't think that we would be in this place. The Japan American Society of Indiana serves as a bridge of friendship between Indiana and Japan. I represent the many Hoosiers whose lives have been blessed with Japanese friends who bring joy, laughter, support, beautiful and authentic experiences of Japanese culture, and many important economic partnerships to Indiana. Indiana has 14 sister cities with Japan, and here in Carmel, we have one of the most active with Kawachi Nagano, Japan. I know that Evan will talk more about that. You may not know that among all 50 states, Indiana has the largest amount of capital investment, employing nearly 70,000 Hoosiers, 70,000 jobs. Our Japanese executives sometimes have a 60-mile commute to their companies because they and their families choose to live in Carmel. They appreciate the quality of life, the great neighborhoods, the schools, the education. This is where they want to live. As I was thinking about today, I wondered, what would our Japanese friends want me to say? That they love Indiana and they love Carmel. They've dedicated themselves to becoming Hoosiers. They've raised their children to become successful, well-rounded leaders. They love their next-door neighbors, their summer barbecues together, sharing their best bottle of Yamazaki, Zumba classes, riding lawnmowers, and shoveling snow on very long driveways. They've made this their home, and it's our home together. However, in many communities, there have been incidences of discrimination. As we all know and why we're here, during the past year since the beginning of COVID, there has been a rise in anti-Asian sentiment. Our Japanese friends wonder, should they keep a low profile? Should they even stay in hiding? One woman recently asked if it was okay to join a local walking club. Would she be welcome? Would she be safe? Some of our members have experienced verbal abuse. Our own Jazzy coworker has been yelled at on 2 different occasions. Go back to your country. Some of our Japanese ladies wonder if they should take self-defense classes. This is a very uncomfortable adjustment for people who come from a country with one of the lowest crime records in the world. But I'm confident that there is so much hope. Here in Carmel, you've already done it through so many great relationships and these important organizations. We're shining a light today and always. Jazzy, our organization, has witnessed transformational change, sometimes in just one day, through intercultural experiences, international friendships, the experience of just one festival, through travel and through education. Transformation happens with the gesture of kindness and compassion. So let's speak up, let's have courage, and let's let our many lights shine. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Representing the Indianapolis Chinese Community Center is its president, Changbo Xiang. He lived in Japan for 6 years before moving to Houston in 2000, and has been a Carmel resident for the past 12 years. Changbo is a research and development scientist. He enjoys Carmel's diverse culture and family-friendly community. Please welcome Changbo to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Okuma, for the nice introduction. First of all, on behalf of 1,000 members of Indianapolis Chinese Community Center, Inc., ICCCI, and the Chinese Americans living in Carmel, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to the Mayor's Office for hosting this important event. As a couple of speakers have illustrated already, in the past year, there has been a steep surge in racist violence and hate crimes against people of Asian descent, especially the elderly and the women. I believe that any civilized human being would agree Asians are not the virus. Racial hatred against Asians is a real virus in our society. Whether the hatred is against Asian Americans, African Americans, Hispanics, or any other ethnic groups, this kind of hatred is our enemy. Thanks to the excellent leadership of Mayor Jim Brownett, as well as the great work done by our police officers, our beautiful hometown Carmel has been a safe place. Asian Americans get along with all the other ethnic groups, including the mainstream society. Remember early last year, when the pandemic started here in our home, ICCCI and other Chinese organizations immediately responded by organizing donations of dozens of thousands of PPEs and food to assist our frontliners. These timely efforts were highly appreciated. Our police chief, Mr. Jim Brown, knows this about it. When the anti-Asian hatred incidents started to rise nationally, ICCCI received greetings asking what they can help from other local organizations which we never know each other before. That is very heartwarming. However, when we look at the countrywide data, we must understand that such hate crimes have been increasing dramatically. We citizens of all races and ethnic backgrounds must work together on all levels to stop racist hate now by taking timely and effective precautions. Otherwise, maybe one day soon it will spread to here, our home. The victims will be ourselves. Here I wish to ask my fellow Asian Americans, under the current situation, would you keep silent as a so-called model minority? Would you give up your civil rights of voting to select good and wise leaders? Each and every one of us has a right and a responsibility to take over our home, to speak out against inequity, injustice, and racism, to vote and choose, and eventually make our home even better. I also wish to reiterate our position of not distinguishing between parties, political views, or ethnicities on this matter. We are all Americans, first and foremost. Except for Native Americans, we are all immigrants, no matter your ancestors came from Europe and Mayflower, or from Africa only to be enslaved for those many years, or from Asia to build railways for a meager living. The place now under our feet is our homeland. We must strengthen our position and leave all forms of racial hatred no place in this nation. America is our home. We are all Americans, and we are all one family. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Hsu Wu is representing the Korean American Association of Indiana, where he has served as its president since 2019. He has also served several terms as president of the Indiana Beauty Supply Association. Please welcome Hsu Wu.
Hello everyone, my name is Hsu Wu, and I'm the president of Korean American Association of Indiana. I first want to say thank you for inviting me to speak at such a meaningful event. We are gathered here today to recognize the racial justice needed for the Asian Americans. As I stand up here, I am proud to see all the people gathered to stand up for this important matter. It is time that we show the unity of the Asian Americans. I'm going to speak about three important factors that I believe we should be actively taking action and partaking in learning. First, history. We need to understand and recognize that this rise in anti-Asian hate didn't happen overnight. It isn't just because of the pandemic happening in the world. Part of America's development was impossible without the blood, sweat, and dedication of Asian immigrants. For example, the transcontinental railway was impossible without the blood, sweat, and sacrifice of Asian immigrant workers. We need to be proud of our Asian ancestors and be vocal about our history, because we belong in the United States just anyone else. Number two, education. Recently, the state of Illinois passed a bill to make Asian American history mandatory in all schools. I believe that this is what is needed in all the states. The children are our future, and it is necessary that they are taught the history that our ancestors went through, along with the present matter as well. Americans need education of the Asian American settlement process, commitment, and culture. So I strongly encourage you, keep your eyes and ears open, and if you see your fellow brothers and sisters be faced with racism or hate, help them out, help each other out. So let's spread love, not hate. Once again, let's spread love, not hate. God bless you all, and stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Hsu Wu. The City of Carmel has sister city relationships with Kawachi, Nagano, Japan, and Shenyang, China. The next speaker is Dr. Evan Kreutzer, who is the president of the Carmel Sister Cities, Inc., which was established in 1994. The organization has enjoyed a long-standing relationship with many exchange visits with Kawachi, Nagano, Japan, Please welcome Dr. Kreutzer to the podium.
Kelvin, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to the Mayor's Office for the invitation to speak this evening. My name is Evan Kreutzer, and I'm here on behalf of the Carmel Kawachi Nagano Japan Sister City Organization. I'd like to take a couple minutes just to tell you a little bit about how I came to stand before you this evening with our organization, and a little bit about what we do. 3 years ago, my wife and I moved to Carmel, and if I'm honest, we hesitated for a moment moving here. We were looking to start our family and worried that this community might not promote the diversity that we believed in. However, around the time of moving here, we happened to take a trip to Japan. The last weekend of our trip, we ended up in a rural bed and breakfast near a city we'd never heard of before, named Kawachi Nagano. Being millennials, not knowing anything about the city, we turned to the internet. We looked at Wikipedia and were shocked to find that the city was actually sister cities with our new hometown, Carmel. We mentioned this in passing to our host that evening, and before we knew it, we were whisked away on a tour of the city, a personal tour, which included meetings with the heads of organizations in their city, leaders of major industries, and we even dined with the president of their sister city group. It was clear that the people of Kawachi Nagano had immense respect for Carmel and its citizens, and they were eager to share it with us as de facto ambassadors. So when we returned to Carmel, we were eager to learn about the sister city here in our city. We were pleased to find that it was a group full of like-minded people who were working to spread awareness of Japanese culture, to support Japanese members of our city, and to promote diversity and acceptance. So let me tell you a little bit about our organization. As Kelvin just mentioned, we just celebrated 25 years in existence. Some of our biggest projects have included arranging a trade fair in Japan with several Indiana companies. We host Japanese artists almost annually at the Carmel International Arts Festival. And of course, we helped to build the Japanese garden located just south of City Hall. Now, I'm a pediatrician and a father of a toddler who's wandering around in the back here looking at the fire trucks. And so, to me, the work that we do with our children is of utmost importance. Our group has created an outreach program with Carmel schools. We've strengthened the 32-year-old high school exchange program, and we facilitate an annual art exchange with elementary school students in Japan and Carmel. In fact, the Japanese art is even featured here in the world's smallest art gallery. Our organization has accomplished a lot in the last 25 years, but we're also looking ahead to the next 25 years. We'd like to grow our organization. We'd like to build relationships with other like-minded organizations here. Our goal is to promote cultural awareness and to support the Asian community here in Carmel. To this end, I would like to personally extend an invitation to anyone here or anyone listening this evening who would be interested in joining our organization. You're welcome to see me after the program for more information. For our part, my wife and I will be welcoming our second child in September and the newest member of our organization. And having now settled for 3 years here in Carmel, we look forward to raising a family in a community that values diversity. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Kreutzer. On June 29, 2012, Mayor Brainerd and Deputy Mayor Yang of Xiangyang, China, officially agreed to a partnership of the two cities during a signing ceremony in the chambers of Carmel City Hall. Ming Yi serves as president of the Carmel Xiangyang Sister City Committee. Please welcome Ming Yi to the podium.
Good evening, everyone.
And first, thank you, Kevin, for the introduction to the Carmel Xianyang Sister City. So, as what Kevin has already mentioned, Carmel Xianyang Sister City has been established for more than almost 10 years. Next year will be our 10 years anniversary. And thank you, Mayor Leonard, for hosting this important gathering to loudly say no to anti-Asian American hate, to promote, to call for racial justice, and to support our Asian American Pacific Islander communities in our own hometown, the city of Carmel. Thank you very much. So since the onset of the COVID-19 at the beginning of last year, the numbers of reported Asian hate-related crimes has been rising. I just cannot believe my eyes when I watch TV, when I look at those reports. My heart just broke. So members of Asian Americans, they are terrified, hurt, and frustrated at the threat of so many physical violence. I have been here. I have immigrated to this great country for more than 20 years. In my 20 years of living here, I didn't observe this. I have 2 children. They both were born here and grew up here. And they are in college and graduated from college and started work. So like everyone else in this country, we, the Asian immigrants, and the descendants of Asian immigrants, we study hard, work hard, and make the contribution to our community, to our city, and to our country. So here, we live in a very nice city. We are lucky and thankful to keep us safe. But we must remember that everyone in this world, especially in this great country, we are equal. And we are not asking for special treatment. We are just asking for being treated equally like everyone else. So we all know that the journey of justice has never been smooth or easy. The Asian racism actually runs deeply if you look at the Asian American history, right? So remember that from the Asian labor in gold rush to the World War II, Japanese internment camps. And remember that also that Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, and to the recent, like the murder of Mr. Vincent Chang in 1982. So history can tell us a lot. So I would offer Mr. Wu's what he said just a moment ago. We urge our school systems. We could promote more discussion about Asian American history in our schools, so our younger generation can learn those at a young age. And thank you again for today's gathering. So today, our voice has been heard. We greatly appreciate, the initiative. However, this awareness is just the first step. So it's about just speaking up. It's just about not being silent. So here, I would echo our previous speakers. I just urge every single Asian American, as well as every single non-Asian American, when you see racial discrimination, please speak up. This is our first step. We must take action.
here, and we also ask that the legal initial agent to combat the Asian hate can be supported. That strike can continue to be made to increase the education about Asian American history. And we also hope that those in power and those which have the influence over the public can continue to stand up and speak out against those Asian hate, and also set a good example for us, for many of us to follow. So finally, I would side with President Reagan said. The immigrants came to this country, they came to America, to make America great. They did not ask what this country could do for them, but what it could do to make this land the greatest home of freedom in history. They brought with them courage, ambition, the value of family, neighborhood, work, peace, and freedom. We all came from different lands, but we share the same value, the same dream. These sentiments and values continue to hold true today. We want to be treated and valued just like everyone else. Let's just work together to stop Asian hate. Thank you.
Thank you, Bing Ying. I guess maybe I should take my notes with you when I leave the podium from here on out. Our final speaker is Elijah Choi, who is a senior at Carmel High School and co-president of the student club called the Advancement of Asian Americans in the Arts and Athletics, or A5 for short. The club was founded in 2019, and their mission is to combat racial stereotypes by encouraging Asian Americans to take non-conventional paths in life while fostering an appreciation of Asian culture through the community. When Elijah concludes his remarks, members of A5 will be performing 2 orchestra selections. The first is entitled Lijiang River Landscape, and the second is I'll let him introduce it, sorry, it's different than Dozion, my mistake. Please welcome Elijah to the podium.
Hello, my name is Elijah Choi, co-president and founder of A5 at Carmel High School. I'm honored to be here to speak and introduce my peers to perform some orchestral pieces for this vigil. I would also like to thank the people who made this event possible and for Mayor Brainerd for hosting this event. As a small introduction, as said earlier, A5 stands for the Advancement of Asian Americans in Arts and Athletics, in which we strive to break stereotypes surrounding the Asian American community within our school and city. Over the past 2 years of our club's existence, I feel that our club has accomplished just that, and I'm excited to see this club continue to grow. Now, before my peers come up and perform a piece for this vigil, I would like to say that our hearts, thoughts, and prayers go out to our fellow AAPI community across the nation. The striking events of this past year have shocked our nation. The pandemic that forced our country to stay at home, with many of us fearing for the health and safety of our family members, and also the racial injustice that has come to light within these trying times. Specifically, throughout the past year, the AAPI community has suffered in silence. With the recent increase in cases of AAPI-targeted hate crimes, the need for our community to bolster together and join in solidarity has only increased. In coming to this vigil, we are demonstrating just how powerful this solidarity can be. My hope as co-president of A5 and as a senior in high school at Carmel is that our nation will not be divided by such circumstances on which we gather here today, but that our nation becomes a place where our future generations can join hands with anyone in our community without a thought or fear of hatred within them. A country where clubs like A5 don't need to be made in order to make people aware of the diversity within the AAPI community. A country where events such as the Atlanta shooting will never happen again. Thank you. And then, without further ado, my peers shall perform some orchestral pieces that they have put together. Lijiang River Landscape, a traditional Chinese piece, and Doraju, a traditional Korean piece, both arranged by Albert Wayne.
created us, each and every one, and as your children, we are made brothers and sisters. Send us forth as people of hope and mercy and goodwill. We give you thanks for all who made this occasion possible, and pray that we will leave here as grateful citizens. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Davis. And, thank you everyone for coming here tonight. I thank the speakers for their wonderful thoughts and inspirational words. Thank you to Mayor Brainerd, to Sharon Kibbe, Kate, and others in the City of Carmel for pulling together this gathering in support of Asian Americans. And my final comments are just this. The rise in hate crimes against Asian Americans is disturbing. But we also have to understand the history of this country for hatred and prejudice against Asian Americans. It has not just recently occurred. It may have increased, but it has been endemic to this society. Mentions of various things. There was a mention of the Chinese workers who built the western end of the Transcontinental Railroad. Unfortunately, the president of that railroad, when he became governor of California, tried to send them back home. That's where the Chinatowns in San Francisco and other communities actually occurred, because they came together as a group to live and to protect themselves. So there was a lot of hate, or at least racism against Asian Americans. It is much better today, I'm sure, but there is still a lot of inherent, overt, or systemic bias that exists. I'm a fourth generation Japanese American. My relatives have been here for 130 years. I grew up outside of Philadelphia. I've lived in Boston. I've lived in Delaware. I've lived in Illinois, California, you name it. And I'll just say that even progressive communities have their issues too. Someday I might even write about what some of those issues are, because I've started talking about it with even some of my classmates from undergraduate, and many of them are actually shocked what even happened in college. So I'd just like to say thank you for everybody coming here to sort of show your support, and